So welcome to this edition of Chat with Chair. We have with us today Mr. T.R. Kesavan, Chairman, FICCI National Agriculture Committee, and also the Group President of TAFE Limited. Uh, Mr. Kesavan is an engineering and management professional with over 40 years of national and international experience. He's been a gold medalist in a distinguished academic career. In his spare time, he mentors students. But as the group president of TAFE, the world's third largest manufacturer of tractors and India's largest exporter of tractors, you drive the product management function of a large portfolio of agricultural products, equipments, and engines in both India and overseas markets. So a very warm welcome to you in this edition of Chat with Chairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chinoy. Look forward to this interaction.
Thank you for being with us. And, of course, there's a lot of current discussion on the recent farm bills announced by the government and the ability to transform the agricultural sector. But this conversation is more about a budget. So in the forthcoming budget, the Honorable Finance Minister said is going to be one of the budget of the decade or the century. What are the further key expectations from the government, in particular with respect to the agriculture sector? And what would be the priority areas for investment post-pandemic to build a resilient agri-supply chain?
Thank you. I think it's a very important question. As you rightly said, we are expecting a lot out of the budget. The finance minister also increased the expectations manifold. As far as agriculture is concerned, I think now the time has come for moving away and investment in technologies. I think that is going to be the key word. Investment in technologies are not just subsidies. Subsidies are actually working as cost plus, and that's not the solution for India. Investment in technology, especially to enhance the value addition and reduce wastage at every step. Because, you really look at it, we have a post-harvest losses amounting to almost 63,000 crores every year, year after year. And our level of processing is being so low. I mean, vegetables and fruits 2% and marine at 8% and poultry at 6% is really, really low. I think this is where we have to spend not only the investment in technologies, and we need to really ensure that a link up of markets are possible, and also export can be a big thrust area if we do this right. Precision technologies is again an area where we'll have to work out, because precision technologies are definitely going to reduce the cost of production for the farmer. And I think that's going to be very, very important, because that's something goes directly into the pocket of the farmer. This is there has to be a big thrust area if the government is concerned. And the third thrust area I can think of is, I think we need an increased agricultural statistic and arbitrage and information arbitrage, so that this can be used by every farmer, every person connected with agriculture. We have been always saying that just data is not going to help the farmer. Just data farmers are not going to produce. He's going to buy. So if the government can provide this data, then there can be intermediaries who can convert the data, so that this can be made a solution to the farmer. I think this is going to be one more area of technology intervention. Last but not the least, I think we have to give more allocation to research and development. I think something 0.3% of agriculture GDP is what we are giving to R&D. And consider the kind of money we are spending on subsidies. And I think there's a time for us to move into increased R&D, budgets to R&D, and maybe even income tax deduction, so that the people will be willing to invest in agricultural R&D, come from end to end. I'm talking about right from farm to the fork. We need to really have challenges, and we need to challenge every action what we are doing, so that value added things happen, and everything can be very easily driven by technology, IT, and we can build in a lot of transparency. I think this is where I'm going to stop. I think this is a big expectation from the budget. And this is over and above what they normally do on subsidies, which I'm not a big and eager person to support in a big way.
But you know, in the recent annual convention, the Prime Minister made this appeal that Indian industry should invest in not only in agriculture but also in tier two and tier three cities. What will it take to get Indian firms to actually invest in infrastructure in a bit more aggressive manner so that we can actually see transforming that? This is just a follow-up question to the last question there. And if you can even give an example of what, let's say, a company like TAFE is doing, and then it would help with the viewers.
Sure, thank you. I think again, I think as you rightly said, it's an extension of the earlier question. I think one of the most important aspects is that, see, it's not that we are not getting agricultural deals. I think I was told that almost a billion has been pumped in at some point of time. And the question for agriculture policy change, see, till today, maybe till beginning of this year, nobody was very clear that what kind of investments can be made based on the existing laws at that time. I think the current change of laws will definitely help people to move in with new focus. And unfortunately, I think some of these laws need to take place and really need to happen. But without waiting for those things to happen, what is that we can do to increase the penetration? First thing I think is we at every state level, I think there is a urgent need to have some dedicated cell which will go to facilitate a dialogue on this agricultural front. You know, we have done this for industries. A lot of states have done it for industries and reasonably working well. I don't see this happening on the agricultural front. Two reasons. Somehow it's not never been considered as an industry and there's no enough force given there. Now I think with the changed laws, this can at least happen in some states can start this. I mean, whoever is amenable to it can start it, and the other states, I'm sure, will start following it up. The other thing is that there is a definitely need of enhancing of agricultural universities and research centers. We are given a couple of pointers to this, even for the ministry, saying that unlike the IITs, etc., we really don't find agricultural universities closely working with the industry in India, especially on the agricultural side. So we suggested that we must have industry people involved in the governing bodies of these agricultural universities, even if you have to tweak the agricultural universities MOAs and rules and regulations a little bit. Because if you're really going to the startup and places for testing all this, I think agricultural universities have vast areas and this all can be utilized. And if there is necessity to have a reasonable amount of confidentiality, the agricultural university can actually offer them. This is very, very important if you genuinely believe that the startups are important for Indian agriculture industry. The third thing is see, we need talent. So I think the skill development is going to be an extremely important area. This is why, again, I suggested that not agriculture universities need to really start talking, working with the industry, with somebody in the governing system, so that we can actually start mapping what is really needed. And believe me, the way things are changing is every 2 years we are going to see something new on technology. So I think this is a very, very important step the government will have to do. Thing is, the anything which is catalytic funding by government for young agricultural startups is interesting. They are putting something like 100 crores per annum. Here, I also will suggest that government can initiate programs on a little bit on a more on a PPP, which can easily be done if they are going to put the agriculture universities in a PPP mode so that we can all work together. I think this is very, very immediate need to take this forward. Coming to a question you very specifically asked, and what PAFE is doing, actually, what we have done is we genuinely believe that a lot of IT related action in the agricultural field need to be done so that it can value add the small and marginal farmers. See, I think that, I will answer this question when it really comes down to, I think, the need for better mechanization in India. The
Right.
reason here, I'll come to that. I think there is something I definitely want to talk to on mechanization. So I'm just going to hold this for a minute.
Oh,
Please, Mr.
so
Chirag.
let me take you to mechanization, because in India the level of mechanization is only about 40% compared to about 75% in Brazil, or even 95% in US. So what enabling policy is required in budget 2021 to actually accelerate the farm mechanization process, and also not only the farm but end to end from farm to fork there?
Let me divide this into two questions actually. One is productivity and second is mechanization. See, I am a personal believer that productivity for the sake of productivity is not going to help. Productivity has to be all round. The meaning is that I cannot increase productivity and ensure that all the other supporting functions are diminishing, whether it is water resources, it is soil health. So productivity has to be optimum, and it has to be done in such a way without affecting the natural resources. So I think that is the primary change I think we need to drive. It is no more like the old green revolution that I'm willing to pump in or any amount of fertilizer, I'm willing to pump in any amount of pesticide. I won't really worry too much about the soil. That attitude has to change. So one way of doing this is rather just measuring productivity, I think we need to measure how are you utilizing the scarce resources, and with that, how much the productivity can be improved. Why I'm saying this? Let's also be very factually correct that India's production of 300 million tons of food grains and also more than 300 millions in fruits and vegetables, to be honest, is more than ample even today, because we are not able to procure everything. We see a lot of wastages even pre-procurement, post-procurement. So if I cut down wastages, I think probably we save something like 25% of today or even more. So that is one area. So productivity I'm not going to look at independently. Productivity I'm going to combine this, saying that how do I save the resources, how do I reduce the wastage, and then what is the productivity I need. That's the question. Second is productivity has to be linked to what is the crops which will give me the maximum value. I mean, a very typical example is, we don't want to export water. I mean, there's a long discussion on this. So I think it's high time we start concentrating is that what is minimum needed in order to ensure the food security of India, and beyond that, what is the value added crops I can produce both for India and abroad, and utilizing the resources. So that's why I said I'm going to look at this slightly differently. I'm not going to look at the compare the figures of Brazil and USA, because for me, India is a country where man and machine are going to work together. I don't think we'll separate man from the machine in India like what US has done, what Brazil has done. So they don't have people and they have large tracts of lands. So our case is going to be different. But what is important, what is extremely important in India is everything what we do in India, we are only catering to one set of farmers. The genuinely small and medium farmers, really small farmers. We are not able to mechanize them even if we have rental system, we have customizing centers, etc. Because these chaps don't even have this minimum amount of money to rent it. So one of the requests we are putting to the government is that considering there are 45 lakh tractors in the country, and if you can actually start giving these poor chaps 2,000, 4,000 rupees subsidy for every land preparation time. Per hectare, 2,000 is a part of SMAM already. You give that. They will have that money to start renting equipment. And in India, whoever has got money can get a rental equipment. That's not a problem. So I think once you do this, you'll suddenly feel that we will bring in. See, today, let us say there are 9 crore farmers, actually 12 crore. Let's take 9 crore farmers. Out of them, the top end may be only around 20-25%. The real bottom end will be 25%. So if you can really give some kind of a support, what I call as lend to rent, I think you will get another 25-30% of the farmers into mechanization, maybe in the turn of 1 or 2 years. I think this is going to be one major important step. And I genuinely believe that we will have to push this with the government. We have been writing to the government. A part of FICCI has sent notes on to the government saying that we coined this term called lend to rent is going to be very important.
If you to take that forward, and that's you're saying, or 2,000 rupees, maybe twice a year, that's 4,000 rupees, right? And it's not going to be to very large numbers. So it's just it's like about you know 40,000 crores or 30,000 crores, which we're looking at in a number in the budget. But there are about 7,500 FPOs in India. Last year, the FPOs were also mentioned in the budget, and they are filing an important gap in the supply chain. But only very few have reached and commercial viability. What policy announcements would you expect in on FPOs in the upcoming budget?
See, for me, FPOs, all said and done, is very, very, let us say, it just started. I think, though we started talking about FPOs for the last 3, 4 years, the genuine thrust on FPOs has started now. When we looked at FPOs, one of the biggest problems we found that, see, when FPOs go in for lending, talk to government, a lot of people are not able to fix them. Where do I fix this FPO? So one of the requests we have been always telling that, why can't you treat the FPOs more like an MSME? So that once you call that FPO is also something like MSME, all the opportunities, lending procedures, everything available for MSME, every policy available for MSME can be opened out for FPO. So you don't have to really sit and start drawing up something new for them. I think this can be a quick win policy for FPO, number one. Second thing is that, when you talk about FPO, the market connect is the most important aspect. And one of the reasons why they are not able to get the market connect is also the quality assaying service. I know some states, I mean, I can give an example of Tamil Nadu. They have done a reasonably good job on quality assaying services so that these FPOs can become more agile. But the question in FPOs is that if you don't have a structure in which the FPOs has to work, and if every state doesn't look at FPOs as a little small industry where I need to support them, wherein the input is all the seeds and blah blah, and output is what the produce is coming out, and also link them up with the conversion factors. What I say conversion factor is FPOs needs market connect, not only for selling them, but also converting that product, whatever they produce, into value added commodities or processing. So every FPO needs to have somewhere nearby they can do the processing. So these are the areas I think we have to work together. And my genuine request is again, if our Fiki has been talking about it a lot, we have been requesting that create an agri council because agriculture is such a complex area. Create an agri council. Let it be led by the government with all the states being having chair. Something very similar to GST council. Start working with them. Bring in all the knowledge available in the states on agriculture, create a policy which is transparent in this SOPs are transparent. We can start working. And this is what we did in industry. We really look long back. This is exactly what we did in the industry revolution, what India went through. But unfortunately, we don't call it by a council. We did this for GST because things used to fall between the state and the center. Agriculture is something very similar, very, very touchy subject. So I think we need a consensus building measure and creating a way forward. I think that without this, FPOs will also struggle, is what I'm worried about.
So you earlier in the answer to one of the questions you mentioned about water and
Yes.
how you use the water. So nearly 90% of fresh water withdrawn in India is used by agricultural purposes. And of course, our country's water table is also depleting at nearly 0.3 meters per year. What, according to you, could be a conducive policy framework for ensuring sustainable water use management in agriculture? And what could the budget do in terms of investments or incentives to increase the coverage of micro irrigation in the country?
Okay. Again, let me divide this into this question as we divide it a little more. Because first of all, water need to be conserved, one part. Second is the actual use of water need to reduce. So not only that available water is conserved, whatever the conserved water, when you utilize it only as needed and not just because you have water, you waste it. See, really one of the two big problems, I mean, I don't want to get into politicals of it, but the two big problems in two states in the India. We have serious water resource problem because power is free to the farmers and they are happy to pump out all that water. The question is, nobody is asking a question. It's not that we should not give the power free, but actually leads to exploitation of water resources. What are we really trying to do with it? So one of the policy we must have is there must be a checkpoint of how much water is going to be used by the farmers. And it has to be related to which area you are coming in. You know, it's a water scarce area, you must have a different policy for that state or the scarce area. This is one very important thing. Second is we must push on precision agriculture. Two, three things we'll avoid in this. One is, and I'll give you an example, very interesting thing which is done by a Tamil Nadu farmer. He created a small capsule, like you eat the capsule for our medicine, where he put in a rice seed, he put in a little bit of fertilizer, he put in a little bit of gelled water, covered it and planted it. Interestingly, it actually had a growth very similar to flooded rice. So this is the direction I'll always suggest. First of all, ask a question: are we wasting the water when? So is there any other way we can do this? There are water guzzlers like rice. There are water guzzlers like sugar cane. So I think we really need to. That's a planning policy I'm expecting people to really do. Move it to these areas where there is enough of water availability and change the pattern of how we utilize. I think this is extremely necessary, not today. It's very easy to talk. People may not like to change. But if you don't do this, this water depletion can become a serious problem. Second is all the three, the Jal Shakti mission. The most important is it need to work with the agriculture ministry. It need to work with the policies, and the Niti Aayog is to create policies behind it, and the states has to be brought in. Again, an example, very good example. I mean, I'm here trying to quote Tamil Nadu because actually we're seeing results. I'm quoting it here. You know, the check dams what these chaps have been started making suddenly realize that the water tables have started going up. So these are the kind of measures I think the Jal Shakti has to come in. Available water, check dams, or ensure that the water goes in one part of it. This is for basically collection and conservation. Then precision agriculture, etc., to ensure that we use very little water for our agriculture. As a policy, do not have guzzlers in areas where there is very scarce water. I know it's going to be a very difficult agriculture political decision, but I think some of the nations are difficult. But if you don't do this today, our next generation is going to suffer. So I think these are the prime thing I will suggest. The policy promotion has to be this. All these things will not work unless center and states are going to work together. Because I've seen places where one district has got water, the other district is going scarce of water. That district wastes water and this district doesn't get it. So unless we really say we are going to work together and get everybody onto the same platform, it's going to be difficult. I'm happy that we have a Jal Shakti mission focusing on it, and we hope that they will get everybody in and create a water policy, and it has to be linked to the agricultural policy. Otherwise, it will all start standing in silos.
Thank you, Mr. Kesavan, for covering the farm laws, the need for investment in agriculture, the need for technology, the need to improve and increase mechanism through a rental mechanization through a rental scheme going forward. Of course, the challenge of productivity in the sector, the need to strengthen and the FPOs and the agri-tech sector, as well as look at the whole issue of the water consumption in this sector. You've highlighted the need for an agriculture council type based on the GST council model and greater coordination amongst the Jal Shakti ministry and the agriculture and water ministries in the states. So you believe literally that collaborative effort will actually help us not only double the farmers' income, but make us more productive and enable more agricultural produce to be produced in India, as well as reduce wastage. So thank you very much for that interaction. And we now have all eyes on February 1st to see what the finance minister decides for the agriculture sector. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Chira. I think I'm really happy to say a few things which I think not only as a FICCI chairman, but as an individual, I genuinely believe that some of these things are going to help the farmers in a big way. Thank you for the opportunity. And I hope that the finance minister is going to listen to this and the other ministry are going to listen to this, and they'll be able to take some steps forward for the good of the farmers, for the good of India. Thank you.
Thank you.